At some point in our lives, we reach a moment where we ask ourselves, who am I? It is an important time for our personal growth and a fundamental question that we should continue to ask ourselves, even when we think we know the answer. We may answer ourselves by saying, I am something more, something deeper. I am not just what people see, I am much more than that. But who exactly are we? We know that we are something that goes far beyond what we think we are and what we see in the mirror. Yet, our identity remains hidden. Sometimes, when we stare into our own eyes in the mirror, we feel a bit strange, as if someone else is staring back at us. We quickly look away and only use the mirror for practical reasons, such as combing our hair, putting on makeup, or washing our face. We never take time to stare into our own eyes and understand who we are, because it makes us feel embarrassed. We fear that something unexpected might come out which disturbs us, so we avoid looking into our eyes with the intent of discovering ourselves, and instead we see our face without any real value, simply as a human body. Something around us mobilizes to prevent us from discovering who we truly are. Our days are filled with commitments that leave no room for free time to stop and reflect. This keeps us from thinking about ourselves and reasoning about our lives, deliberately presenting many problems for us to focus on, so we don't have time to think about our true selves. There has always been something preventing us from asking ourselves who we are, and we comply with it, unconsciously afraid of learning too much information that we may not want to know. We fear knowing our true selves because we know that it will bring about a significant change in our lives, and we are unsure whether it is a good thing. We are suffocated by work, study, and the need to fill our heads with anything just to avoid the question, who am I really? We may even choose to avoid this question altogether and instead find comfort in paying taxes, sending our children to school, and managing mortgages and debts. This will prevent us from taking a moment to reflect on our true identity and purpose in life. Who am I really? We believe that this is the right path to finding peace because the question of our true identity stirs up something so great inside us that, out of fear of the unknown, we may try to suffocate it until we succeed. However, running away from this question will not bring us the peace we seek. We can only find it in the true answers that help us understand who we really are. First of all, we are consciousness. What we often know deep down but try to hide for fear of being overwhelmed or for fear that the journey to uncovering the truth will be exhausting, is that there is something great and mysterious behind our eyes. This realization can stop us in our tracks before we even begin to search for answers, leaving us with a nagging fear that the question will only pile up without any answers in sight. Often, the people around us are too busy with daily distractions to ask themselves the same questions. As a result, we can feel alone in facing feelings of emptiness because no one else takes us seriously. We may wonder if we are the only ones asking these questions, or if others also sometimes look in the mirror and wonder if the face staring back is really their essence, or just a mask, a human body costume that hides their true identity. Often, we believe that our journey is merely a mental one, that everything around us is a figment of our imagination. Yet, even then, we cannot silence that strange voice inside us that urges us to seek the truth. Our commitments and household chores hinder us from paying more attention to that push because, at times, we desire to ignore that voice that makes us question who we truly are. However, that instinct persists. It is subtle, yet continuously tries to make itself heard. We do everything in our power to ignore it, to pass the time. We fill our daily hours to get to the night and immediately go to sleep, so as not to have to think about ourselves, not to have to ask ourselves that strange and tiring question. Then, suddenly, a moment comes in your life when you are ready to discover that you are something far beyond your face, body, and appearance. You know that you are much deeper than your eyes, which don't reflect you as much as you'd like. Your desire is for people to understand you without words, just by looking into your eyes, the mirror of the soul. Often, we believe that our journey is merely a mental one, that everything around us is a figment of our imagination. Yet, even then, we cannot silence that strange voice inside us that urges us to seek the truth. Our commitments and household chores hinder us from paying more attention to that push because, at times, we desire to ignore that voice that makes us question who we truly are. However, that instinct persists. It is subtle, yet continuously tries to make itself heard. We do everything in our power to ignore it, to pass the time. We fill our daily hours to get to the night and immediately go to sleep, so as not to have to think about ourselves, not to have to ask ourselves that strange and tiring question. Then, suddenly, a moment comes in your life when you are ready to discover that you are something far beyond your face, body, and appearance. You know that you are much deeper than your eyes, which don't reflect you as much as you'd like. Your desire is for people to understand you without words, just by looking into your eyes, the mirror of the soul. However, when you look in the mirror, you can't even recognize yourself. At that moment, after so many wasted years of silencing that internal voice, a choice is presented to you. Listen and follow that strong instinct once and for all, or abandon it forever. By suppressing it, you will decide to abandon your consciousness, everything that makes you different from others, and become just like them, identical and lifeless inside, like all those people out there who identify themselves in their job and no longer in the life they have. Alternatively, slowly but surely, you can choose to listen to your instinct more and more. You will notice that every time you do, it becomes clearer and more direct, as if someone were turning up the volume, making everything more real. By deciding to listen to that instinct, you choose to remember who you are. You will let those strange, unfounded fears slide off, and you will notice how useless and senseless they were. Consciousness is more than just the ability to discern right from wrong or good from evil. It is what sets us apart from machines which operate without knowledge of their own existence. Machines move and act, and some can even react to internal stimuli, such as computers, that recognize and solve problems. However, we possess something more advanced, the ability to reflect, to think beyond the basics. We have consciousness. By choosing to listen to your instinct, which is your consciousness, you allow yourself to discover something deeper and of enormous value, the soul. This is something that has never been properly explained to us, specifically to keep us away from the awareness of being a superior life. We have grown up with the illusion that what we believed to be reality was, in fact, real. This led us to believe that true reality was merely a fantasy created by our own minds. However, no one has ever confirmed the truth to us. We have been left to believe that in order for something to exist, it must be confirmed by anyone, not just those who are capable of seeing and understanding it. The truth is not for everyone, but only for those who choose to discover it. Consciousness urges you beyond, inviting you to follow a path of evolution that allows you to get closer to it, to know it, and finally understand its purpose and how to achieve it. Initially, it may seem like a foreign voice because it resides inside your chest, and you do not recognize it as yourself because it is very different. You sense this instinct, which does not speak in words, but you feel it is present inside your chest, pushing to come out, yet something prevents it. This is a strange feeling, sometimes melancholic, but you know it is real because its strength is so great, even when you try to conceal it. You look around and you know that right now you are the only one having this feeling, to hear this voice, and it scares you because it makes you feel like you are the only one in the world. Actually, you are not the only one. Many others have the same feeling every day. They just do not have the courage to say it. Also, not everyone perceives it at the same time. Each person has their own moment of listening, and not everyone decides to start paying attention to that voice, because most of the time we prefer to bury it under 1,000 problems to solve, unaware that the solution to our burdens is precisely that. Yet you keep feeling that urge that presents inside you, that communicates, most of the time without talking. But you feel it, and it is hard to deny its existence. You know that if you keep ignoring it, it would lead to the end of your conscience. But most of the time you try to stifle even this awareness because it scares you. You know that if you separate yourself from that presence, you would lose something too big and too important, but you don't really know its value and what it exactly is. So you let yourself be deceived by apathy, and you try again to move it far away from you so that you don't hear it. The conscience communicates with a different force from yours, a wiser and more evolved mental ability. It is as
if it knew something that you do not know, and so far beyond what you can see, but you still don't know whether to trust it blindly because you fear that following it will take you too far from your life, from your habits. You think your conscience is very different from you, but it is not, because it's you who are different. It's you who walked away without realizing it. You are lucky in that it has not yet abandoned you and didn't let you fall asleep like so many others. You have the choice every day to listen to it or not. The choice to listen to your conscience is not radical, because every day you might decide to change your mind, to listen to it or to ignore it. The choice will never be forced or harsh. Most of the time you will forget you can choose and you will let yourself fall asleep, the sleep that will take you away from evolution. However, it won't be too late yet. Until you completely forget about its existence, you can still try to do something. Otherwise, you will forget everything and become a human machine. Letting yourself fall asleep will take you to the end of your days, making you die inside. It doesn't matter if the body continues to function, because you will feel lifeless inside, without any reason to keep on living. This is not the destiny that awaits you, but you must take a choice every day, because by not choosing, you will let your conscience abandon you. Conscience is something that goes far beyond a simple intuition or the idea of being different. By following it, you allow yourself to really be different, to become someone that, even if you had everything, you might not have felt it before. Conscience is the matter that fills the emptiness you feel and that you have been searching for your whole life, but you never understood how to collect or possess it. It's not easy to understand, but conscience has always belonged to you. You just never knew how to use it. You might believe that conscience is just an indefinite, shapeless and worthless thing present inside you, and something that doesn't need any attention. In reality, it is a force that, if you decide to commit yourself to its evolution, would allow you to achieve goals that you didn't even hope you could approach. We could compare your conscience to your legs. If you don't make the effort to move them, your body won't go anywhere and you won't be able to move forward, with the consequence of ending up in stasis forever. You could try to move in other ways. You could crawl or drag yourself on the ground with your nails, but sooner or later, all this would destroy you. Awareness allows you to understand that the initial effort to give movement to your legs will take you where you want to go, and the strain will be minimal compared to everything you will achieve thanks to this small sacrifice. It will be different if you decided not to move your legs and to drag yourself on the ground to get where you want to go, knowing this very well, that for fear of the first effort, walking with your legs, you would find yourself through much more labor and pain, and that this would not get you anywhere.
With your legs, you can walk fast or even run and cover kilometers, But if you crawl on the ground, you will soon tire, become exhausted, and get covered in wounds. Just as your legs are not there for appearance, but only to keep you still, neither is your consciousness. Knowing that you have consciousness does not mean knowing how to use it, let alone knowing how to always use it correctly. The most common mistake people make is to believe that consciousness should only be listened to. However, the reality is that it should be used, developed, and trained, just like your legs. Consciousness is not just a voice, it is alive and communicates its knowledge, which can increase if you allow it by training yourself to use it. All living beings possess consciousness, including humans, animals, and even plants, and during their lifetime they can store and remember experiences. However, there are people who possess something more than consciousness. It is called the soul. Not everyone possesses a soul, contrary to what we are led to believe, as it requires constant attention, energy, nourishment, and practice to strengthen. So many people ignore their soul, believing that everything is owed to them and failing to recognize its value or necessity. People tend to ignore the soul, but when they realize they may not possess it, they begin to tremble, as if they had never cared about anything else. Each person has a unique level of evolution due to their life experiences, reflections, but above all, to their attempts to rediscover themselves and to awaken through spiritual techniques. Everyone possesses consciousness, which some confuse with the soul, but despite this, few decide to listen to it and follow it to begin an evolutionary path that will lead them to understand it. Everyone has a different time to start reflecting on their life. Some may never start, but we cannot expect everyone to join us today because it might not be their time yet. Some people will start their spiritual journey in a few years, while many others will never choose to begin. As a result, they will never experience the awareness of their own consciousness. Often, this is because they do not know where to start or do not have the right method. Who am I is a question that everyone asks themselves, but only a few will decide to continue and embark on a spiritual path. Gradually, we have opted to use terms to distinguish between those who refuse to explore and those who are genuinely interested in discovering and evolving. While some may argue that labeling and categorizing individuals is not the current approach, it is crucial to differentiate between individuals seeking the truth and those who prefer to remain ignorant of their surroundings. This differentiation is necessary to understand what we can uncover through the spiritual path. The search for our essence and the desire to discover who we are leads us to a spiritual path. This path helps us understand what our consciousness wants to achieve and how to obtain its results. By asking ourselves this question every day and not stopping at the usual banal answer, we are pushed more and more towards what is called spirituality. Although it may seem unknown, everything starts from the question about our real essence. From there, it extends towards the decision to apply ourselves every day to discover new knowledge, which accumulates little by little. The spiritual path is like a journey on which, by walking it, you will find, step by step, more information about yourself. Therefore, we can differentiate between spiritual people who seek answers to their questions and non-spiritual people who prefer to remain ignorant out of fear that the answers may be too overwhelming or due to simple apathy. No matter what reasons lead someone to sleep or choose not to make a decision, the point is that by remaining trapped in routine and forgetting about their consciousness, they end up losing it altogether. Nowadays, the term spiritual is used by everyone, more for fashion than for real choice, with some people defining themselves as spiritual despite not believing in all field of spirituality. This devalues the true meaning of the term, making it seem like something that has nothing to do with what we were initially looking for. Some people who should represent spiritual evolution behave worse than those who claim to know nothing. In fact, the point is not to define oneself as spiritual and therefore say one is, but to truly embody spirituality. We should avoid using the term spiritual to define a person's evolution, as it only refers to the spiritual activities they carry out for a certain period of their life, without knowing if it will last forever. While it may be difficult to understand a person's evolution just by talking to them or looking at them, as they may hide what they know or their physical appearance may not reflect their internal evolution, note that being evolved does not always mean being well dressed and having freshly styled hair. However, practical techniques can help us recognize those who possess a higher consciousness compared to those who are losing it forever. At present, it is assumed that you may not know how to identify others who, like you, are in search of answers to their questions unless you provide them with a theoretical definition. Therefore, let's work together to comprehend the distinction. Let's start by discussing the distinction between spiritual and non-spiritual individuals. By spiritual, we refer to those who are currently engaging in a spiritual practice, while non-spiritual individuals are not currently practicing anything. It should be noted that nowadays many people self-identify as spiritual without actually engaging in any meditative practices. In this path, we will use the term spiritual only to refer to those who are genuinely practicing meditative techniques, rather than those who simply believe themselves to be more evolved, wise, or conscious than others without any underlying principle or practice. Those who do not practice, even if they speak of themselves as a god descended on earth, will remain non-spiritual. In fact, without practicing techniques to evolve seriously, they spend their time self-praising with beautiful words that have no substance. These words remain mere words, As previously mentioned, every person is unique and has the right to their own personal moment. Just because it may be your time to be spiritual, it doesn't mean that those around you are ready as well. However, this doesn't imply that they will never be ready. In reality, some may start reflecting in a few months, while others may take a few years to decide to practice with the intention of evolving and becoming spiritual. Furthermore, spirituality is a daily choice. When you forget to choose, you start to lose spirituality because your consciousness falls asleep again. Therefore, it is not possible to define someone as spiritual just because they attempted to practice something years ago. This doesn't necessarily mean that they are still practicing it today. Being spiritual is a choice, and when we stop choosing, we stop being spiritual. So, we can consider using an alternative recognition method. However, it is important to note that this method is currently only theoretical, given your current level of understanding. Once you learn to appropriate techniques to recognize individuals with a strong consciousness, you will have a better grasp of these concepts and the value of using such terms. Hence, there are those who have a consciousness but are unaware of it, and those who are conscious every day and create something that transcends human consciousness, the soul. To differentiate between those who never ponder their existence and the meaning of life, and those who understand that they must discover the purpose of their birth and the future, we will use simple, generic terms that avoid labeling individuals permanently. Let's begin by discussing those who have no interest in discovering the reason for their existence. Not only that, but we are talking about individuals who become irritated when others try to ask this type of questions. While there is no inherent reason to become upset if someone else believes in a different theory, some people try to forcibly prevent others from exploring spirituality. Even if some individuals believe that there is no purpose in life and that the ultimate goal is to be born and die without ever having achieved any evolutionary progress, there is no reason to become angry if someone else tries to discover their personal identity without bothering anyone else. If this identity didn't exist, why bother hiding it? Why go against those who wish to believe that there is more to life than what we typically say? There is no logical reason for this behavior unless there is something greater than themselves that prevents them from evolving and attempts to stop others from doing so. We will refer to people who are not spiritual, do not believe in spirituality, and may even oppose to those who ask questions about evolution as Gaia's law. Gaia's law refers to individuals who possess a low frequency which can be understood by reading appropriate articles, and belong to the planet Earth, which we will refer to as Gaia or Gea in this path. These individuals will not transcend their imposed human life, will not question their true essence, will not ask themselves, "Who am I?" will not desire to know it and will possess a consciousness too tied to the planet. They will be referred to as people of Gaia, or more accurately, as low-frequency consciousnesses linked to the planet Gaia. Over time, you will understand how fitting this term is, and in the next documents you will better understand the differences. Gaia's law, or people with low consciousness, are mainly divided into less evolved and more evolved categories. Despite not practicing meditation or spiritual techniques, they still try to recognize their consciousness in their own way. However, this alone is not enough to transcend consciousness, because without energy techniques, we remain limited and individually blocked. On the other hand, we have spiritual people. They not only ask themselves questions and wonder how to evolve their lives, but also actively seek out meditation and practical techniques to do so. We will name them celestial. This is just a brief overview, but it is important to remember that consciousness must be trained, not just listened to, and this will lead practitioners to discover information about their existence that they never thought possible if it had not been so evident. Choosing not to listen to your consciousness leads to a life of becoming a human machine. However, by choosing to listen and utilize it to the fullest, you can evolve further from life to life. The decision is yours, but I advise you to follow your consciousness to the ends of the earth, because it is always right, even when you are not.